Hello, I'm Alan Parry. I'm the author of How to Remove Trauma Response. And I want to share with you today something that one of our lovely members inside of my coaching group shared on our coaching community. I really like our coaching community because there's so many brilliant therapists and coaches, and they share great insights. And I'm going to share one that Lisa shared with me the other day that kind of blew my mind, and I'd never thought of this before. But it's a great way to remember memory reconsolidation. Now, of course, memory reconsolidation, as I outline in the book, is the brain's only mechanism for actually overwriting trauma response. They never used to think this was possible, and now neuroscience knows that it is. So our job as therapists and as coaches is, how do we actually do this for our clients so that the word, that's just an alarm going off there. So how do we do this for our clients? So when we talk about trauma, we're not just talking about the big T stuff. We're talking about any sort of psychological injury that still impacts life today. So if I just share my screen here and I can go into this, when you actually get to the memory consolidation part of the work that we do, right, here we go. The formula is always the same. What the brain needs us to do, and this is really the end of our therapy and coaching journey, because we have to find out what it is that we're activating, what's keeping the problem alive. But basically the way it works is that you activate the old schema, the old beliefs, the old trauma response, if you like, and then we provide a mismatch experience. And then to complete the job, we just repeat those two together. Activate, mismatch, activate, mismatch. And this is basically the way it works. Now, within the roadmap of trauma removal, like I say, we do have to do some discovery work to find out what it is that we need to activate. But once we know that, once we know what's keeping the problem alive, this is what the brain needs ultimately to then take that away so that in future the change is permanent, the change is effortless to maintain, because that brain pathway has actually been overwritten. And this old activation, this old schema, this old trauma response is simply no longer there. And what Lisa basically said the other day is the Charles Dickens book, A Christmas Carol, is the perfect way to remember this process. So I'm going to go through this with you. Now, everyone's familiar with this. Certainly every fan of the Muppets is familiar with the story Christmas Carol. But yeah, so it's a very famous story. You've got this character called Ebenezer Scrooge. And Scrooge is, he's indifferent to suffering. He's very isolated. He's very cynical, I suppose, of other people. And so he's living this very lonely life, just him and his money. And so if you like, this is the schema. This is what we would need to activate. And of course, life activates this kind of pretty naturally anyway. If life wasn't activating this stuff, nobody would come for therapy and coaching. But it does. And so often it's activated in the room anyway, or in a person's life. And certainly this was activated in Scrooge's life. And what happens here in this story is that he has a mismatch experience. Because first of all, he gets the ghost of Christmas past. And so this here is a mismatch experience. And the great thing about this is that it even incorporates the repeat part. So we get the ghost of Christmas past, and while things are still activated, we get the ghost of Christmas present, and of course, we get the ghost of Christmas future as well. And so in this story by Charles Dickens, we are essentially getting this activate plus a mismatch experience, activate plus a mismatch experience, activate plus a mismatch experience on repeat. And so I thought I'd share that with you, because when we think of this stuff here, activate plus mismatch experience plus repeat, it can be maybe a little bit difficult to remember. But thanks to Lisa, if you know the story of Scrooge and Dickens' book, A Christmas Carol, or the Muppets film, A Muppets Christmas Carol, you'll be able to lean on that story a little bit for your own memory in terms of understanding what you need to do in terms of for your clients. So once you understand the schema, the trauma response, the emotional learning, if you like, the prediction, or however you think about it, the set of beliefs, the emotional responses, once you understand what it is that you need to activate, you can simply remember that there needs to be some mismatch experiences. And in Scrooge, there was the ghost of Christmas past, and then he's like, oh no, what a load of old rubbish. So that activates the old belief again. Then the ghost of Christmas present, and then he fights it again, what a load of old rubbish. And then he comes back to the activation, his old belief, and then the ghost of Christmas future. And as a result, of course, what happens for Scrooge is that while he starts off with this indifference to suffering and sense of isolation and sense of cynicism, that is completely rewritten. And so what we end up with at the end is that Scrooge has empathy, sees the importance of community, so is no longer isolated anymore, and also has this optimism about human nature. And of course, the reason why is because that old trauma that fed into the schema and the beliefs that come from that has now been rewritten by this activate plus mismatch experience. So I hope that's useful as a little aid memoirs, a little explanation as well of how this all works. And I'll see you on the next one.